like this just looks so full. It's such a fall palette. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 eyeshadow palettes for the autumn season. I have been watching so many of these types of video recently because I know a lot of you guys are heading into your fall season. Down here in New Zealand, we're actually going into our spring, our summer. The weather is finally warming up and I feel like I just have better lighting now because the sun's out. This past winter has been so gloomy, I feel, and my lighting has been very dim, but now it's very nice and bright. But I know most of my audience is based at the other side of the world, so a lot of you guys are going to your fall, so I thought I would share my top 10 picks for the fall season. The last time I did this type of video, I did it for my spring palette, so I'll leave that up here. For some reason, I skipped over my top 10 summer palette, so if you guys still want to see that, I still can do it because obviously it is summer somewhere in the world, but I still can share that with you if you guys are interested. But today, let's focus on my top 10 picks for the fall season. So with that being said, let's hop right into the video. So starting off, number one, in no particular order, this is what I'm currently wearing on my eyes right now, and this comes from ODEN'S Eyes. So maybe you can guess the palette I'm about to share. This is the Red Dragon palette. This is my collab palette with ODEN'S Eyes. And I wanted to share this first because I do just want to give a big thank you to anyone that has purchased this palette, has done a review on it, has created looks. You guys have been tagging me on Instagram. I've been watching all the reviews on YouTube. I have a whole playlist if you want to check it out. And I also just want to give a special thank you to Morgan, Patty, and Nikki Raven because they actually did this video as well. They actually all shared their top 10 palettes for the fall season, and they actually included a Red Dragon in their video, which is so crazy to have my collab palette be part of like their top 10. This palette was intended for the fall season. Like, we created this color story for the fall because we knew it was going to be launching around this time. That's what ODEN'S Eye wanted me to help create. So to know that we succeeded with that, like people love this for the fall season, it makes me really happy. So I just want to give a big thank you to these lovely ladies. I'm going to leave them down below, and I'll also leave the playlist with so many other creators who have done looks and reviews on this palette, on the whole Legendary Diversa collection as well. So I just wanted to mention Red Dragon first because I just wanted to give a thank you. But Red Dragon is a really great fall palette if I do say so myself. So if you are new to my channel, or if you haven't seen the Red Dragon palette before, this is what it looks like inside. I think it's a really great fall palette because there's just so many different color stories that you can create. So if you wanted something a little bit more green and grungy, you can stick to like this half of the palette, but if you want something a little bit more warmer, you can stick to the bottom half. You can even go quite purple and burgundy of this palette as well. So I feel like there's just different tones and looks that you can create for this palette that definitely gives you the fall vibes. But I feel like also this can be just a really great daily palette as well. It is what I'm wearing on my eyes, and I think this is a really great warm toned eyeshadow palette for the fall season. I think it will work great all year round. All of these palettes would work great all year round, but specifically the fall vibes. I'm really getting the fall vibes from Red Dragon. But yeah, if you guys want to check out my collab palette, it does support me out a lot, and it is available until January next year. So the next palette is also from the same collection, the Legendary Diversa collection. This is the Giant Wools palette with Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner. Giant Wools seriously is such an amazing, unique palette. If you want those very deep grungy looks, Giant Wools will give it to you. I would almost add this as like my favorite winter palette, but it still gives me a lot of fall vibes. You get these really beautiful deep jewel tone shades, and the metallics in here are insane. Like Annette, oh, she did an amazing job of picking these shades because she just knows what she's doing. She just knows her stuff, she knows color, and this palette literally is it. I do just want to give a quick mention of Hummingbird. If you guys want me to do that top 10 summer palettes, Hummingbird would be the first palette I mention because this color story is definitely a lot brighter, more summer vibes rather than fall vibes, but obviously I love Tina's palette as well. But for the fall time, I would say Red Dragon and Giant Wolves are some good options depending just what you like, and you are supporting some small creators as well. So But onto the next two palettes, they both come from Kaleidos Makeup. I couldn't pick one, but I wanted to just add both of them in anyway because I do love both and I love Kaleidos's formulation. So this is the Futurism 1 Sci-Fi Green and then Futurism 2 Cyber Bronze. I'll open up Futurism 1 Sci-Fi Greens. This is a 6-pan palette. So in this palette, you get 4 mattes and 2 metallics, which I think is a really good ratio. So if you want something that's very like grungy, a lot of greens and like very musky camo, then I think this palette is for you. And Kaleidos' eyeshadow formulation is just so smooth, so buttery, very easy to blend. I would highly recommend them. I think they are so worth it. Even though they are a little bit more pricey, like for 6 pans, I think this is, I think it was like 25, I believe. I think it's worth it because look at this packaging, guys. Like you won't find packaging like this anywhere else. It's so unique. It is like something you're so proud of to have in your collection. And these shades, like I wish I just had more time and more eyes to play with these shadows because they are so stunning. Although there's only 6 shades in here, there is definitely a lot you still can do with this, and just love their formulation. The other one is the Futurism 2 Cyber Bronze, and this one is definitely a lot warmer. You get 3 mattes and 6 metallics in here, and again you get those red tones along with those warmer tones for more of like a warm, rich type of fall look, but there's also still a lot you can do with this as well. I love all of their Futurism palettes honestly, but I would say out of all of them, these two give me the most fall vibes and I would highly recommend them. The next palette comes from Juvia's Place. I have the Warrior 2 palette, and this is actually an all matte palette full of beautiful warm tones. And if you are like me and you love your mattes, and I feel like mattes really suit the fall season, you know, I feel like shimmers, I mean you can obviously still wear shimmers whenever, but shimmers give me like more spring, summer vibes maybe, I don't know, but I feel like you can't go wrong with an all matte palette. This is a really great base to just have in your collection. Juvia's Place is also very affordable as well, and just these tones are just so beautiful. Again, it's just I wish I had more time, more eyes to play with this palette. And I think if you just want something very warm and rich in shadows that are just going to blend, then the Warrior 2 from Juvia's Place is a really great one to have. If you want to keep it very light for every day, you can. If you want to go all the way, go blown out smoky, you definitely can as well. So now hopping into the next palette, this one comes from M Cosmetics. It's their Divine Skies eyeshadow palette in the shade Faded Clementine, and this is such a pretty little 6-pan palette for all of your rich warm tone shade. So I know this is really expensive. It's probably the most expensive palette I have to share with you, and it's probably one of the smallest that I'm sharing as well. I love how in this like 6-pan you can go very berry or you can go very orange. Like you can go 2 ways, and I really love how it's all small, compact, and look at this little eyeshadow palette. It is just adorable. It is just screaming fall, you know, pumpkin spice latte. I think her shadows perform really well. They're super easy to blend, very pigmented as well, and I just like how you're able to do a lot with just only 6 shadows in here, and you're able to create like 2 different color stories. If you want just anything fall vibes from M Cosmetics, the Faded Clementine line is absolutely stunning. The Faded Clementine blush is what I'm wearing on my cheeks right now, and it's my favorite. It's my favorite. But I love the eyeshadow palette too. I'm just saying the whole Faded Clementine shade family, beautiful. So the last 4 palettes now are all going to be ColourPop. As you guys know, the majority of my collection is ColourPop, so that's why you don't really see a good variation in my top 10. It's usually like half is some other brands and the other half is like all ColourPop. So the remaining 4 palettes is going to be ColourPop. I think it's an improvement because I remember in my top 10 spring palettes, I think it was 5 palettes ColourPop, 5 palettes other brands, but now it's 4 palettes ColourPop. So I feel like I'm slowly expanding my collection and my brands that I have in my collection, so that's good. That's good. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. But the first palette from ColourPop I want to mention is one of their recent palettes actually. This is It's a Mood. It's one of their recent mega palettes. I feel like this is just a really great fall time palette. I think there's just so much you can do with this. A lot of the palettes recently that I've been reviewing, a lot of the comparisons that I would find, I would come back to It's a Mood. This can be a comparison palette for a lot of palettes because obviously it is a mega palette, so you're able to find more shades in here, but I definitely think the tones just scream a lot of fall to me. For this palette, there's just so much you can do. You can stick to more of that warm, rustic, rich tone side, or you can go more to the jewel tone side. So if you like a mega palette and you want like a lot of options, then I think this would be a really great option. Everything worked well for me and I really love the looks that I created from this. The only downside really is if you don't like pressed glitters, there are 3 in here, so maybe just keep that in mind. But other than that, I think there's just a lot of amazing fall looks you can do with this. And the next palette I have is that taupe, and this is sort of like a cool toned, sort of a dusty taupe palette. I feel like this one could be like a winter palette as well because it's not your typical like rich rustic tones for fall, but I think for more autumn and fall looks on me, I like more cooler tones as well. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of cooler tones, and that taupe is one of those palettes that I feel comfortable wearing. A lot of people love the Going Coconuts palette, which for me it was just too, I guess, neutral, where it looked really ashy and gray on my skin tone. I just didn't feel like it brought out my complexion. I actually felt like it made me look more dull. But with that taupe, although it is neutral and very cool tone, I feel like it doesn't wash me out. And whenever I crave, because sometimes I do crave a cool tone look, whenever I do, I always head for that taupe. And I think the variation of shades you have in here, you have, you know, there is quite a few lighter tones, but you do get the lighter tones for transition, the medium, the deep, the metallics in here have a good range as well. I just really love this palette, and whenever, again, I need a cool tone look, I will always go for that taupe. Like, surprisingly, when you look at this palette, you're not like, oh my gosh, Judy would love that, right? But it's definitely one of my favorites. So for the fall time, if you're wanting something more cooler tone, more grungy, that taupe is a really good option. Next palette is at Forest Sight. This is a collab palette with Raw Beauty Christie, and I think this is just a really amazing fall palette as well. It is very reminiscent of It's a Mood, and I think you don't need these 2 palettes. If you're a fan of smaller palettes, you don't want to purchase a mega palette, this would be like a good mini version of It's a Mood, you know? Because personally for me, I do prefer smaller palettes, and I think with at Forest Sight, you just get a lot. There's just a lot you can do. You get way more mattes in here than metallics, which again is something that I personally do like. And there's just so many color stories you can do with this. You can go with the greens, you can go with the burgundies, you can go with the blues. Like, there's a lot. The oranges, whatever spectrum you want, you can do it with this palette. Alone on a 12-pan palette, you can do it with this. So I think for that, it is a really amazing palette. And it's also a collab palette, so you're supporting an amazing creator as well. I need to double check if this is still available, but I'm pretty sure it is. But I think it's a really great palette, and again, I wish I could use it more. So now onto the final palette. There were a lot of options for this final spot, and I was like, should I add in like a purple palette, because I didn't really have that in this list. But I think for the last palette I want to mention, I just have to mention it because one of my most favorite looks that I created, one of my most favorite like fall grungy red wine looks came from this palette. I just had to mention it as the last one. So this is the Whatever palette. This is just a dream to work with. I love this palette so much. I talk about it so often as well. There is a pressed glitter in here, so just keep that in mind because I know a lot of people don't like that, but personally I don't mind it. It might look very monochromatic, but I assure you a lot of the looks that you get out of this will look different from each other. And this shade, Miss Brightside, actually like the inspo for the shade Aurora and Fire. I wanted something very deep and rich that would work like Miss Brightside because I love this shade in this palette. It works so well for such a deep shadow. I feel like this just looks so fall. It's such a fall palette, and yeah, I can't forget that look that I created. Seriously, I don't know what about it. It's just really like a deep smoky eye. There's nothing so special to it, but I love it so much. But that does wrap up my top 10 palettes for the fall season. I would love to know what you guys think of my picks. I would love to know some of your favorite fall palettes down below as well. Whatever the season, you can wear any colors, and I would still love to know, even though I'm like kind of sweating in my room because today is such a sunny day. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below, and if you guys did enjoy this video, if you could give the video a thumbs up for me, I would appreciate it so much. But that does conclude today's video, guys, so thank you so much for watching. As always, I love you so much. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!